In the heart of a dense, forgotten forest, there lies a small, decaying town called Hollow Creek. The town was once a bustling place, filled with laughter, life, and prosperity. But now it's nothing more than a ghost town, haunted by a dark and terrifying history that the locals are too afraid to speak of. One evening, a group of 5 friends, Emma, Mark, Sarah, David, and Lisa, decided to explore Hollow Creek. They had heard rumors about the town, stories of strange disappearances, eerie whispers in the wind, and shadows that moved without a source. Intrigued and eager for an adventure, they set out on a cold, misty evening, armed with flashlights and an old map they found online. As they entered the town, a thick fog rolled in, shrouding the streets and old buildings in a ghostly veil. The air grew colder, and the silence became deafening, broken only by the occasional creak of old wood and the distant howling of the wind. The buildings were in ruins, roofs caved in, windows shattered, and walls covered in thick black mold. They came across an old church at the center of the town, its tall steeple barely visible through the fog. The door creaked open as they approached, revealing a dark, dusty interior.
Emma led the way, her flashlight casting long, eerie shadows across the pews. The walls were covered in strange, ancient symbols, and the air was thick with the smell of decay.
"Let's just take a quick look and leave," Lisa whispered, her voice trembling with fear.
But curiosity got the better of them, and they ventured deeper into the church. At the far end of the room stood an altar, and behind it, a large wooden door, slightly ajar.
David pushed the door open, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into the darkness.
The walls were damp, and the air was heavy with the scent of earth and something else, something metallic. As they descended, the sound of their footsteps echoed ominously off the stone walls. At the bottom of the stairs, they found themselves in a small, dimly lit room. In the center was a large, ancient-looking chest covered in dust and cobwebs.
Mark reached out and slowly lifted the lid.
Inside were old, tattered journals and strange, rusted tools. But what caught their attention was a small, blood-stained doll lying on top, its eyes staring lifelessly at them. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind them, and the room was plunged into darkness.
Their flashlights flickered and then went out, leaving them in pitch blackness.
The air grew colder, and they could hear a low, guttural whisper coming from the shadows.
Panic set in as they realized they were not alone.
Sarah screamed as something cold and clammy brushed against her arm.
The whispers grew louder, more insistent, and the room began to spin.
The walls seemed to close in on them, and they could feel the presence of something ancient, something evil lurking in the darkness.
Emma fumbled with her flashlight, desperately trying to get it to work.
When it finally flickered back on, they were horrified to see that they were no longer in the small room. They were standing in a vast, dark forest, the trees twisted and gnarled, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands.
The fog was thicker than ever, and they could barely see a few feet ahead.
"Where are we?"
Mark whispered, his voice trembling.
"I don't know," Emma replied, "but we need to find a way out of here, now."
Just as she was about to give up, she saw a faint light in the distance.
Summoning every ounce of strength she had left, she ran towards it.
The light grew brighter, and she found herself standing at the edge of the forest, the town of Hollow Creek just visible through the trees.
She turned around, but the forest was gone, replaced by the old church.
The door was open, and the whispers had stopped.
Emma stumbled out of the church, her clothes torn and her face pale with fear.
She was the only one who made it out of Hollow Creek, but she was never the same. The town haunted her dreams, and the whispers followed her wherever she went, a constant reminder of the horrors that lurked in the shadows. No one believed her story, of course. They said it was just a tale, a figment of her imagination. But deep down, Emma knew the truth. Hollow Creek was not just a ghost town. It was alive, a place where the boundary between the living and the dead was paper thin, and once you entered, you were never truly free.